Sean, and really quick, actually, our ministry is called Think International, and that is a few people that help us, but it's mainly Jeff Moores and myself, and Jeff is sad he can't be here. He's in San Diego, suffering through just beautiful weather, being on the beach, and so we'll intercede for him later, but yeah, we've been doing this thing for about 8 months. Think International is a nonprofit. We got our 501c3 status. We love that. And what it is it's speaking media. It's speaking, idea generation, branding, marketing, strategy stuff that we do with different churches and ministries. And then it's media, where we do things like interviewing people, just kind of getting the word out of what is going on, as well as some cultural stuff. So I'll give you guys cards at the end so you can check out our website. We're all on social media and stuff. And you know, what's kind of interesting is Think is really been built through social media. And usually, I mean, maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong in most situations, but if you search like somebody we have interviewed or talked to, or a ministry we've done a piece on, our interview with them will come up right at the top of Google, maybe sometimes more than their website, et cetera, because of some of the stuff that we apply and do. So we're passionate, one, about promoting others and getting that kind of results for them, but then we're also passionate about getting people equipped to implement these things in their own ministries, their own churches, et cetera, whatever they're doing. So we'll talk about social today. I'm gonna rush through this stuff and try to get to question and answer as quick as possible, because the session's going to be pretty general, because you guys are probably all at different places when it comes to where what you're doing with social media. So here's the deal. First thing, in fact, here's kind of an outline. We're going to talk about the significance of social media. Then we're going to talk about the implications of it, so the significance of it, the implications, a few foundational things, and then how to respond to the implications of social media. And then we'll just do general question and answer. So the first thing is how significant it is. And I am 100% convinced that all of us sitting in this room don't understand how significant the internet and social media is. I don't even think myself I can wrap my head around and grasp it. Like it's such a big deal, and it's so profound. And you know, since we're in this room in ministry and in church and in Christianity, I just want to go through like a rapid fire history of technological advances and what they meant for the gospel. You know, I think sometimes we think God doesn't, you know, as Christians, we're usually late adopters when it comes to technology and different cultural changes. We're not early adopters that jump on innovation that really has the potential to reach people. We wait to kind of test things out, and sometimes there's wisdom in that, but God's very much into technology and strategy. You know, it said that Jesus came at the fullness of time 2,000 years ago, and the significance of the time he came was not an accident. It was definitely planned by God. And some of the technology that was going on then was the Roman roads, number one, was the synagogue system where there was a platform for preaching to happen, and was a common language in the day called Koine Greek. And so 2,000 years ago, God waited for that perfect time, even for travel and things to happen, connecting of people, communication, relationships. And he sent Jesus, very much leveraging the technology of the day to get the message spread around. You know, you fast forward to the significance of 1440, the Gutenberg Press. What kind of impact did that have on the spreading of the gospel? It wasn't actually until 1450 that there was a guy that stepped up to the plate named Johann Fust that financed the mass printing of Bibles. Big deal. And then the gospel was spreading because of technology, communication. The printing press comes out. Now the gospel is able to get out in a major way, also by a businessman who financed it. Amen for the businessman that financed technology. You know, fast forward even more, 1930s radio. What has that meant for the gospel? Then television, black and white, you know, and then eventually color television. And maybe we have mixed beliefs about the quality and the content on our, you know, Trinity Broadcasting Network. But no one can argue that they have reached people en masse leveraging the technology of television. Seen countless saved through the leveraging of that technology. Now, you fast forward to roughly 1999, and no one really knows when the internet started or really who started the internet, and it's just constantly debated. And then And then you even step into Web 2.0, which for those who like definitions, nobody really has a definition of what Web 2.0, but what Web 2.0 was social media. So you had the internet stage one of just kind of getting info, and then Web 2.0, social media, meant it started going this way, and people started connecting, and there started being communication, social media, Web 2.0. That stuff is so young, it's so brand new, we don't even have any idea the full ramifications and impact of it. I mean, how many people in this room can remember a time when the internet didn't exist? All of us, when there was no such thing as the internet. How many in this room, remember a time when Facebook, wasn't even there, right? And now it's here. All of us. Like you can probably think back to the times when your physical mailbox was being spammed with discs from AOL. Yeah. And then you turn them into coffee, drink coasters. And so, this stuff's so new, and it's super significant, and it's just changing the world we live in. And social media is as significant as the printing press.
Oh yeah.
Easily. So the implications, consequently, what this has done, and some of us have definitely seen this, but here's just a few implications. Connectivity and proximity and exposure is like no other time in history. Connectivity, proximity, we're so connected, and then the exposure. For instance, exposure to knowledge, information, culture, civilizations is just instant, and you can just be sitting in your apartment in Vancouver, Washington, and literally see the whole world. You can learn about everything in the world. We're seeing these really freaky child geniuses, start coming out, musicians, because they're just training themselves on the internet. So, 6 years old, 8 years old, they already are they're watching guitar tutorials and things. It's revolutionizing the world. The connectivity, proximity, exposure, insight and feedback. We have opportunity for what's called crowdsourcing, and that's an important thing that we use in our churches and our ministries. Crowdsourcing is the ability to survey en masse a group of people in the audience. Has anybody in their church used a text message interactive sermon before, or a Twitter interactive sermon before? An idea where you just say, hey, we're going to be answering questions live, text us right now, and then you're able to then answer those questions via, you go, oh, okay, they can keep it anonymous or whatever, or you track their numbers and then you follow up with them later. So you have crowdsourcing, insight and feedback. It's possible to, kind of in sort of a weird stalker kind of way, you can kind of follow up youth pastors, you can follow up on your youth, right? You start looking through their pictures and stuff, and you're like, I need to talk to you about what you were doing this last week. You're able to look at, because there's there's insight, there's definitely real-time feedback. You know what they're listening to, you know what they're tweeting, what there is feedback, and that's ultimately you're able to be used. It's accelerated the exchange of information. Everything has become faster. And a lot of times, we can get afraid of the speed, and there's always the argument of character takes time to develop, which is totally true. But if you think about the distribution of discipleship materials, like the opportunity to get out training to people in remote places and obscure places, everything is faster. Everything has been accelerated with social media and the internet. There's ever-changing forms on how we communicate. We're sending out invites now, and Facebook might not even. It probably is the superpower for the rest of the world, and maybe it'll just take over everything. But it might not be around forever. But social media and the internet will be. So the forms and how we communicate. I was just up in Canada at a conference, and I was at Red Robin in Canada, which is really weird. It's like an entirely different menu. I just want to say it was good, but it was bizarre. And I'm sitting across from a guy from Pentecostal Assemblies of God in Canada. His name's Devin Sylvester. He actually started a chat room small group. And at first, I was like, yeah, right, dude. There's just, and this was a few years ago. And he started a chat room small group, and there's literally, he got a guy saved, prayed the prayer with him in the chat room, and that guy was new to his church, is now on staff at his church, having been saved in a chat room small group. He also said that that would not work anymore, and even chat rooms, they still happen, but the forms of how we communicate are changing. And so that was a piece of technology that was really leveraged, and they're always changing, but it's here, right? This is a quote talking about the recent kind of revolt going on in Egypt. And I don't know if we realize how much that thing was driven by social media. Google, social media led to the overthrow of a regime.
Wow.
Right? This quote says, social media via the web is unprecedented and unpredictable. For authoritarian leaders used to controlling media and events, time and technology are not on their side. For authoritarian leaders used to controlling media and events, time and technology is not on their side. And that leads to the implication of radical transparency and privacy being completely eliminated. One of the things that we definitely have to realize is that, I like what it said, authoritarian leaders in a government sense, but sometimes in history, the church has sometimes kind of been known for having some weird stuff happen inside of the doors, weird stuff in leadership and different things. And honestly, the days of being able to hide stuff are just gone. It's just over. And I've personally been through an experience of being in a church that started being blogged about and things like that. That's just the reality, is that stuff's going to get out there, people are going to talk. And so we can be afraid and try to stay away from social completely, but that's a losing strategy. We actually have to dominate and take our church's reputation, our brand reputation, our personal reputation very seriously on the web. For youth pastors raising kids and parents raising kids, we have to, begin talking to our children at a super young age about being intentional about their actions on the web, because they are permanent. Those pictures will always exist. That blog will always exist. And then I think, too, we have to relax a little bit, because every president from here on out and every pastor is probably going to have dirt as well. Because in the old days, it just wasn't recorded in gigabytes and databytes, and just now it is. But we have to move into a realm of radical transparency. It's no option. And there really is very little privacy. And that doesn't mean we water down or necessarily change what goes inside, but we have to be very considerate about web stream and everything that's going out there, right? Okay, this is kind of a big, bold statement, but bottom line, to ignore social media or even to treat it lightly is grossly negligent and extremely foolish. In doing so, you're choosing not to expand, grow, and ultimately reach more people. Okay. Couple essential things when viewing social media, and I want to get, again, we're rushing to Q&A, and form, arguments or thoughts or whatever, that you might want to ask. And then we can get into specific platforms too, like we could just say, well, like how, I don't actually know how to tweet or what's a direct message, we could do that kind of stuff too, but basic things. Number one, social media is amoral. Just like anything else. Are there dangers in it? Yeah, but there was dangers in TV too. Are there, can it be used bad? Yeah. Pastors, can your staff, do they stop working and just check their Facebook all day? Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're not getting any work done. There are those dangers, and those things are there. But in and of itself, it's amoral. It's like, money could be used for good or evil. It's an amoral thing. And so we have to be intentional about it, but it can get a bad rap. It's a tool. It definitely is a tool. It's not, much like television itself is just a tool and it's just a platform. There can still be bad shows and good shows, good actors and bad actors, and all the television does was get it to someone's house, just gets them in contact with it. You still need some actual substance, some actual content, just because you're, dominating Twitter, you're dominating Facebook, but you have, no authenticity or real love in a service or power of God in a service or, real authentic things happening in a ministry. Well, what good is good social media then? It's just getting the word out about something it's just a tool. And then the main things need to stay the main things despite technological advancements. So it doesn't replace real relationships. And those still have to be there. In fact, we have to strive to get them and to maintain real relationships in a real major way. But it opens up new possibilities. I mean, a story just happened this last week was I actually met a guy on Twitter, and we talked on Twitter a little bit. He decided to fly out here because he wanted to work in Seattle just to take me to breakfast. and to look for a job. But he had no other contacts, and I had nothing for him. He's like, hey, are you guys at Think International, hiring? And we're like, bro, we'd like to hire ourselves. Like, we're a nonprofit. Like, we cover our website hosting right now. Like, that's, and we do other stuff on the side. But so we're like, no. But he said, you might, some people or whatever. Let's come out to Seattle. So he flies out. We sit down. Now he has a job, and he's going to be moving to Seattle, where he really wanted to be. Just because of a guy that knew a guy, some other people I met on social, And so it's still real relationships. It's still like actual content and learning about people and figuring out what they're all about. But new possibilities are opened up. Connection to ministries, to people that are able to train your people, to resources that can move your ministry, help it go further, faster, are out there. And those connections have been made possible by social. All right, so how to respond to the implications, just a bunch of quick things, and then we're going to be in Q&A. So the first thing within social is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, who is author of a book called Crush It and a book called Thank You Economy. Good, awesome guy when it comes to social media stuff. He gave this illustration. We actually interviewed him recently, and he goes, well, I kind of view it like push-ups. He said, you could read about it and hear about it and talk about it all you want, but if you don't actually do it, you don't get the guns. And so, clearly, I've just been reading about push-ups and not actually, but you got to get started. And so, jump in. Just start it. It's scary, it can be weird, but you want to get going. In social media and basic platforms, like you really should be blogging and you should be tweeting and you should be on Facebook, and maybe that's about it, maybe flickering and stuff like that. But just get started and learning kind of comes. It's not like it has to be a complete overhaul. You just devote some consistency a little bit each day. And then 2, this is for every youth pastor, and maybe really every person, but definitely every youth pastor. Develop at least some personal competency. And this will tie in number 3, and outsource the rest. But develop some personal competency. Like really learn about how to use Twitter, like how to use Facebook. Like watch some how-to videos, maybe read the how-to, or take the smartest tech guy in your ministry, in your church, and have him just do you a crash course. Because you do want some personal competency. And every pastor, too, I would say, should have some personal competency. But beyond that, outsource the rest. Get somebody in your ministry that's passionate, grab somebody, get them inspired, and then have them do it, have them take it over. A position's emerging in Fortune 500 companies and businesses in a real major way, and churches, called CCOs, Chief Communication Officers. En masse, smart businesses and smart churches are actually putting a person, sometimes a pastoral person, over communications, specifically social, and kind of just the way the church's brand talks and communicates. And so, no matter what size your youth ministry or whatever, just get somebody and be like, hey, you're our CCO now, He's like, yes! It takes the right person, but get somebody in that position and then get them resourced and just get them talking and connecting with the right people. Get them to conferences or get them watching videos online to be learning those types of positions. A friend of mine named Lindsay Tallarico is the brand voice for World Vision. And they're based out of somewhere really close here, Washington somewhere. But she's the brand voice. Like her full-time job is to be the voice of World Vision on social media. And to kind of talk to them, et cetera, et cetera. And we can go into that, but obviously that individual needs to be able to communicate your brand in a good way. So you get that youth that's like, I'm the CCO, and start saying stuff you wouldn't want said. But number 4, leverage it for learning. I think that one of the most powerful things, like we're leveraging social media for talking. Sometimes as pastors and as youth pastors, we use it to talk. And if there's somebody you should follow, this guy only has 30 followers. But you got to follow this guy. His name's Epic Youth Pastor. And it's all one word, Epic Youth Pastor. He's totally a fake person. He calls himself Joshua Caleb's son, which is joke, Joshua Caleb's son. And he goes, I'm from the most awesomest youth church with like the biggest, and he says this stuff. And you might take it the wrong way. Like, I think he's kind of cynical, but like it's so true. He's like a prophet to the nations with his tweets. And he's like, he's like, hey, here I am, famous youth pastor, having a public conversation with other famous youth pastor. Ha. Another funny one. I hope to not make all youth pastors uncomfortable. Myself too. He goes, daily routine, tanning salon, hair salon, Apple store, trendy coffee shop. Tweet pics of me doing all four. Right? All caps, because tonight is the most epic night. It's been the most epic service. Everything's the most epic it's ever been. The guest speaker is going to be so epic, and worship was just epic, which, right? So there is that whole thing, though, that as people that are tweeting, talking, we're always like, we're saying stuff, but the potential to learn and listen is there, like to actually listen to other people, and especially for your media team and for your other leaders, like if you get them learning and listening to the right people, not thinking about saying like, I just had a sandwich, but like to think, a good example is like, for instance, Think International. We put out content with leaders, like we interview like some of like the most cutting edge leaders, like, Pastor Poncho and, guys like that. But no, we interview these guys who have killer insights and that are legends in ministry. Awesome. I got to sit with a guy at lunch that talked about how Pastor Poncho was like a legit lover of people and minister at Portland Bible College. This guy went to Bible college with him, and it was one of those like behind the scenes stories where you got like before he was on VH1 Behind the Music. And that kind of stuff. But like you really get insight into these guys' lives. A lot of times we're like, I'm the cool youth leader, and listen to my tweet, as opposed to like, I could be listening to insight principles. I could be learning how to use Facebook better. I could learn how to make the video better. I could be listening to, really edifying resources that are non-Christian, because sometimes our Christian stuff's sterile and ugly and nasty. And I could be getting that. So on Twitter, I'm thinking about, I want to follow people because they've got wisdom flowing out. They've got blogs and videos coming out. I have way less to say and way more to listen and way more to learn in those places. And so number 4, leverage it for learning. And then number 5, leverage it for listening. And one of the best, there's two kinds of, if I give you an illustration, there's two kinds of Twitters that we could have. Here's Twitter 1. This is maybe like a church. And then here's Twitter 2. Now on Twitter 1, you say a tweet that's like, oh, our most epic Easter service is coming up, soon. Make sure to buy the new book by the so-and-so. By the way, we're selling, this. Don't miss the outreach on Friday. It's going to be better than every outreach we've done on this side. Then you have on this side, that's like, at Johnny Pants 222. Yeah, man, I love what you're doing. At so-and-so. That's awesome. I really want to encourage you in that. And there's like, you can have the side of interaction with actual people and not just push. This is our event. Do this, watch this, be, so on and so forth. But you have actually interaction. We want to get into the place, number 5, leverage it for listening and interacting with people. And imagine this. Imagine if your church, the brand of the church, like twitter.com/your church name, was to be listening to the people in your church tweeting and talking, and your church was to talk back to them and just be like, that's awesome, you're in a job interview, man, we're praying for you right now.
That's good.
And there's your at reply. And then you have another one, so you talk, and maybe in Q&A we'll talk about what an at reply is for the other 80% that aren't. And then, you go through and listen to the people, listen to the youth and be like, oh, you're doing a performance today? Man, we're just standing with you, at your school. Or like, even just be real, because sometimes we can get so, sterile and so church and, whatever. Like, they're just like, man, I'm listening to the new, Katy Perry Fireworks song. And you're like, man, love that song. You know what I'm just saying? Because I actually really have a thing for that song, but.
Say it again.
Okay, number 6, care and be human. I mean, the biggest thing is to really care about on social, and then also to be human. Sometimes it can be so sterile the way we do stuff. Like, again, it just seems programmed, it seems so planned. Have it just kind of be real, our responses to people. We really can invest. And here's the why, because you say, well, why would, we want to do that? Because it's still people. Yeah. It's still relationships, and it still builds context with people. So there can be an exchange where, I mean, how does that person feel that goes to your church, especially scalable as your church starts getting bigger? You're having people engage and be a part of connecting with people. They're able to learn about what people are into, what they like, what's going on in their family, and then you're able to connect with them on a Sunday morning. It still has to be followed up with authentic relationships, real stuff, but you're able to connect with them on a Sunday morning and just be like, yeah, man, I've been seeing what you were going through this week. You know, I saw that, like, and how's that going? You know, how's that job search going? How's that whatever? You have insight into people's lives that you never had before. People revealing stuff that was never there before, which really leads to pastoring, and it gives incredible opportunities. And then lastly, don't be afraid, but be quick to respond to issues. I think a huge thing that we can be afraid of is what if, you know, a disgruntled intern just starts lobbing out, you know, crazy things on Twitter, you know, or what if this happens and what if that happens? I mean, bottom line, it's probably gonna.
Yeah, that's right.
And so rather than be afraid and not embrace it, we just have to respond quickly, and we have to get radically transparent. You know, think about some of like the, anybody been to Jack in the Box in the last year? Here?
I think.
To be honest. Wow, most of the room not. Still, you know, only 10% of the room. That was bad illustration. Has anybody taken Tylenol in the last year? Okay. Think of it, you know, not too long ago, Jack in the Box had massive E. coli issue, and they've recovered. They're still going. Tylenol had, I don't remember, it was like rat poison, whatever thing, and they have recovered. They're still going. So the bottom line is that if stuff comes out, if issues happen, you just got to deal with them. And it's stuff like saying, yeah, we're sorry, we were wrong, or to publicly, like if someone, you know, is tweeting stuff that's not true, you can also publicly tweet stuff that is, and you can also personally go to them and talk to them. You know, the bottom line is we just have to engage. The stuff's going to happen. We have to be ready to engage, ready to act, and be ready to realize, too, that if we don't create a culture, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. So it's always like the 10 people that were at your church that, you know, they've left, and so like now they're blogging and so on and so forth. We really have to create a culture amongst our interns, amongst our teams, that they're talking about all the positive. Like here, and there's a real practical illustration of that. You could have a YouTube video where you get the one person that's like, you guys are stupid and you're a cult, and that's the comment. How, you know, a lot of times we've got 20 leaders, 20 interns. It should be mandatory that when you put out the video for Peer Conference 2011 that they all comment on it.
Yeah.
What's that going to do? It's going to shoot it up to the top, one. It's going to blow it up, and it's people who, it's not being manufactured, they're just not saying anything. They're like, man, I love this, such a great church, man, just authentic people, like real deal people, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you know, have people go on Yelp, whatever the translation, you know, Malta, all these like search engine sites, and leave comments that are positive about your church, because that's public. Like, get those testimonies out there, because they'll show up in Google search results, et cetera, et cetera. It's always the squeaky wheel that takes the time to make sure it's going to get there. We have to be intentional about getting that positive feedback there. And so right before we do Q&A, I'll give everybody a card here, and so you can connect with myself and Jeff. Also, our website is just a great resource. We interview different people like Lindsay Tallarico, the brand voice for World Vision, and we do stuff when we go into media and video editing, or I myself do personally. I'm a video editor, so like I talk to Nick Koo, the lead video editor of Hillsong and stuff. That's on there. And part of that social media culture is getting your teams connected to info that's going to help them move further and faster in social media, in what they're doing. And so definitely, I'll give you guys all cards after. Think International, thinkintl.tv, and then. We also do stuff where we come in and train teams hands-on. If you were to get 20 people in a room, 20 laptops, and Wi-Fi, we get a PowerPoint going, and we actually will get in and physically work and train a group of people to get their Facebook up and do different things. Maybe we'll bring a camera too, because it's always weird if like your Facebook photo or your Twitter photo is like a bird, or like, you know, like like just something weird. Like one good practice is it's you. Like, what would you do in real life, what would your picture be? It's your face. It's who you are. It's social media. Like, they're interacting with you. So you should put yourself out there, like a picture of yourself, and not like some weird, character off World of Warcraft or something. Come on, somebody. So those practical things. We'll do just an entire facelift on your social media. We can come in and do that. And then in a follow-up to this, this itself we'll throw up on a big blog post of everything we're doing from Pure Conference, all the other interviews and stuff. But I'm also going to just put out a post on Think International of some resources and of some people you should follow and listen to, of some things like 50 Ways to Use Twitter by Chris Brogan, one of just like the killer guys out there. And like, if you just do a little bit of this each week, like if you just literally took 30 minutes a week to just learn a little bit, bottom line is we couldn't even get into it all here. It's more of like an attitude. I want you guys to leave with, it's a big deal. I've got to start doing something about it, and I'm going to take action on it little by little to really leverage this for the advancing of the gospel, to realize that it has power and it has potential. And so we've got about almost 15 minutes or so. So question and answer, Q&A. We can get into specific platforms. You could ask about the ROI, the return on investment, like why, you should go into it, issues with it, problems you've seen, whatever you think. Yeah.
Is there I guess it'd be kind of hard to gauge, but is there like a statistic about how many people, for instance, like when you post something, who might not respond to your post, but actually do view the post? You know what I mean?
It's a good question. What I really like is what you brought up stimulates a thought, is that this is totally true when it comes to all your Facebook, all your Twitter stuff. Quality is infinitely more important than quantity.
Yeah.
One of the recent interviews we did, a guy put it on his blog. He has 50,000 followers. He's a legend. Don't get me wrong, but he has 50,000 followers. The video he put out, multiple other people put it out, it has 600 views. We're a lot of times looking at the percentage of people that interact with what someone tweets is about 1% to 2%. So you need to get 1 million followers if you want, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the people with the higher percentage, they maybe only have 1,000 followers on Twitter, but they talk with them. There's relationship there and there's context. So if you think about it as a youth pastor or something, if you're like, here's our discipleship resource, and sometimes we feel good like we got something done, read this latest blog. Is anybody looking at it? It's interesting to know. Like, you want kind of metrics on that. On an actual tweet, I'm actually not sure. Somebody else here might know. On a tweet photo, you can see the count on how many people look at that, and how many views they have, and obviously YouTube views and stuff. But quality over quantity is super important. Yeah.
Now, when you do a reply to someone's tweet, that's actually going back to them as a message. And does that go on that person's page?
Yeah. So.
Kind of see, like, if they do a real good tweet, and I'm like, hey, good stuff.
Right.
They see that.
Yeah, the way it goes, the thing with that replies too is that it's only going to show up on somebody else's Twitter feed if they both follow you. So you don't have to worry about and one thing that we have to move away from is the day of getting the updates from somebody to your text, your cell phone. Did anybody ever do that? You set up tweets to go to your cell phone from different people you followed as text messages? Just turn that off. Like, those days are gone, because we're tweeting all day, every day. But that being said, again, you don't have to worry about people like their thing being filled up with you talking to other people. It's only if they follow both of you. And yes, it does. It goes in a place where they can see everybody that's @mentioned them. Yeah. And to @mention somebody, you just put it and the same deal, you could put 3 names in it, and it's going to show up on their @mention thing. Yeah. You can only direct message somebody that follows you back.
So that's the same as wall-to-wall on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Because wall-to-wall does the same thing, where you both have to know the person before you can see it and stuff like that.
Right.
Do you recommend on a website of having the constant feed going, where all the messages are showing up, or just having a link, connect with us type thing?
I think both are cool. I think the other really cool thing that's going on right now is sometimes I like, what they're doing at conferences, paratweet and stuff, where people are able to tweet about the event and show the feed up there and different things. Here's another thing that's super important, and if you are taking notes, write this down. Probably one of and it's less in the Christian world from what I've seen, or less in the church world, but depending on things, search.twitter.com is one of the most important websites that you should know about. Search.twitter.com. Search.twitter.com searches what people are tweeting about all over the world, and how many are tweeting about it and what they're tweeting about. For instance, and so maybe try to apply this to ministry. I was just working for my business, a company that is changing the waiting room experience in healthcare facilities. And so they go to hospitals and they say, look, waiting room experiences in healthcare facilities are horrible. It's like People magazine from 2004, and the chairs are really uncomfortable, and the lighting is really bad, and it smells really weird, and et cetera, right? And can anybody relate to that? Waiting rooms, it's an awful place. And so they want to bring stuff in. So within that, we type in waiting rooms in search.twitter.com, and it is blasted, in some cases with people mentioning the name of the hospital, that's saying, I hate waiting rooms. This effing waiting room is the worst I've ever been in. There's, 2 things I hate in my life, like being stabbed in the face with a sword in waiting rooms, like people going through. But then furthermore, it's like there was one where it dropped like such and such hospital has the worst waiting room. I never want to come back to this place, da-da-da-da-da, right? So that's crazy. So you're able to go and look, like saying people are publicly talking about you by name. Now, a couple things could be there. You could say, well, one, if someone's, what are they saying about your church? That's a bit, or about you. That's question number one. But question number two is you also can engage with those people. Yeah. Rather than being like, oh my gosh, they said something. That person in the hospital could see that and say, man, I'm so sorry this is what you're going through. Hey, we just brought you a latte. Here's a blanket. Wow. And they could respond, and they would have never, it was what was going on inside of that person's head, and they're able to interact. Furthermore, if you want sermon ideas and different things, I'm sure you have tons of content to know what's out there, but you can see what people are talking about by search.twitter.com. You can just search that. You can search about what people are saying in your city. Lots of resources out there like that. Within that too, here's a quote from the CEO of Amazon. If you make customers unhappy in the physical world, they might tell 6 friends. If you make customers unhappy on the internet, they can each tell 6,000 friends. Wow. Yeah. And so that's true for the church. That again, word of mouth has never been gone away. It's always been the most powerful thing. Always, inviting people one-on-one. But so a positive testimony and people talking in a positive light about their experience at church, about what's going on, is powerful, and so is negative. And so we can listen to the negative and we can respond. And that would definitely be the CCO's job, to be on top of your brand, your church, your youth ministry, whatever it is. Questions?
Well, I don't know if it's so much a question, but I'm a youth pastor, but I'm also in charge of AV Web at our church, and had an experience pretty recently in the last year where, at the time I had about 50 youth, and one disgruntled youth through social media actually orchestrated basically a meeting to revolt against our church. And I was able to get wind of it through social media and actually crashed the meeting. Walked in and I had 40 of my 50 youth basically putting together a 95 theses that they were going to nail to my door and, orchestrate a walkout, and you said something for me, how to deal with those kind of things when they happen. Because had I not been hooked in the media and kind of know what is being said, I wouldn't have caught wind of it and never knew that one person could influence 40 people.
Yeah.
Just like that. Just because she simply disagreed with the decision I made. Instead of talking to me, it was just blasting me. Got 40 of my 50 youth together, and it was a hard time for me because I felt like everything we had worked 4 or 5 years to build, one person, social media, was able to just really kind of just steal that from me, and it was hard. I kind of went into a depression and just like, what's going on? And so for me, that side of how do we deal with that negative that will come? Because yes, it's a great, valuable resource.
Yep.
But how to deal with it, that for me is the...
Yeah, well, that's really good. Sorry I had to go through that. I was on staff at a church that went through a very similar thing on a much larger scale. And so a couple things. One, again, if you didn't engage in social media, if you chose not to, that could still happen. Yeah. So that's just the reality. And I would say that honestly, we should be prepared to actually think that something like that will probably happen to us in our lifetimes. That being said, and maybe I won't say any particular names, but let's take some big, great ministers that we all love that have international ministries and huge churches. They have massive negative stuff about them on the internet. They've got videos made about them. They've got lists about why they're a heretic and why this teaching is wrong and this teaching is wrong. Some of my favorite people. And here's the bottom line. 2 things. 1, so did Jesus. He had that negative stuff. So we have to have that.
Yeah.
2, they've got really good social media people keeping their stuff at the top. Honestly, bottom line. Because when you search out these people, and again, I won't say just because we'll put this on the internet stuff, guys that I love, is that we have to take a serious, aggressive stance to so dominate. And here's the deal. So if you, a couple things that are to be done is, 1, if you have a culture of positive from leaders that are there and different people that you've surrounded yourself with, you do have someone saying negative, but you have positive. Unfortunately, because we adopt so late in the church, we don't have any positive out there, so it's only the negative that gets out there. Like this, I would like call a meeting, as soon as you get home. Be like, all right, leaders, this is what we're doing. Like, well, I'm going to walk you through this process. When we put out a YouTube video, you all comment on it. We all do this, and we're going to go to all these sites, and you review it. And hey, get your parents, get your thing, get the story, get them published, get them out there. And there's the bottom line. People are going to say stuff, but then you've got all that negative coming out. It has to now battle with the positive. And people are going to make up their own minds. They can discern if someone's being crazy and whacked. And that's just kind of the way it is. But we need to make sure we get that positive out there, and we aren't afraid like, it's self-promotion, or it's we wouldn't want to brag or anything. That's not. This is like life or death. Like, you just have to forget that whether it's self-promotion or not. Get the word out about the good things going on in your church and your ministry. The other thing that you can always do is, more than ever, a brand, for instance, a secular brand if there is an issue, the CEO can get on camera by that night and post a reply. And I think maybe because of conceptions we have from the Word, we think, well, Jesus didn't defend himself. And you're right. And he was called to go to the cross, and that was like kind of his calling. But I think that there is a time and a place to defend ourselves. And it's not an issue, blessed are those who persecute because of righteousness. No, we just have to get the truth out about what's, in different things. And so take that with you will. I mean, you look through the book and you got, Paul calling people out by name and stuff in books, right? So there's times to engage. And we just have to be active. We have to engage. So you could think of an address to be like, okay, here's point number 1 of this 95 thesis. It was a negative 1 against you, right? Yeah, so here's point number 1. This is what we believe. Here's point number 2. Here's point number 3. We were wrong. And actually, you're right. I did teach that, and it was wrong. People they will forgive you. And some people are going to leave, but they're going to leave you anyway. And to just take that responsibility to be like, no, actually, we never believed that. We never taught that. We never did this. Yeah, we actually did do that, and we're sorry. I'm going to make a change. That's going to be a healthy church. It's going to create a healthy culture. And it's going to be a radically transparent environment that we create that people are going to want to be a part of. Because I'm saying, if it hasn't happened to you yet, get ready. Because there probably is something like that coming your way in ministry. I'm excited for you. Any other questions? Yeah. Absolutely. And here's the thing. I think that having a Twitter account, if you're in a position of influence, if you are a leader and definitely an upfront person, you have an opportunity and a platform to influence and share your life with people. I think be human and be real. Say, do things that are real and can, think through it. Read some of the resources that I post. Beyond that, though, everyone should have one because there is such an opportunity for learning. Again, whatever you do in life, not everybody in here is in ministry, or you probably have secular jobs as well and different things. The internet is this vast wealth of resources. So for instance, I edit video. I have a Twitter, and rather than caring what people listen from what I say, I want to follow every of the best video person in the world. I want to hear about what they're doing. I want to read their latest blog post. I want to see their latest how-to video. I want to see their latest thing. If I'm a worship leader, I want to do the same. I want to hear about, man, what they're reading, what they just get, their new songs out, and so on and so forth, because I want to be a master in my own, my niche, in my own sphere. And so I'm using Twitter to listen, to learn. I'm not as, thinking like, man, someone cares about my roast beef sandwich, And so, and then the other reason you want to use it is because you can engage and you can talk to people. It's really leveled the playing field for one of the things that people aren't, this will change in a few years, but right now you can pretty much @reply like whoever you want. I recently, I forget his name, Pete something, famous pastor Pete somebody posted something, and I just saw him on this interview, so I tweeted him, and he responded back to me. It was crazy. And that created some context. Obviously not very good context because I forgot his name. There's something about like being reach outable, touchable, reply back to people that talk to you and say things to you. Some of the most extraordinary things in my life was one, I've emailed Gary Vaynerchuk. He has 900,000 followers on Twitter. I've heard back from him twice. Wow. Like specific answers for me, not some automated thing. Like, thanks for tweeting, Gary Vaynerchuk, right? I was reading this book by this guy, and he said on this one page, he goes, super famous, huge, giant blog. He says on this one page, and by the way, I think you should bring me on Oprah, parentheses, hey Oprah, if you guys want to bring me in, here's my number. And so I was like, well, I'm going to call that. So I called that, answering machine, came up, and I was like, and he goes, hey, what's up? Leave a message with your email address. And I go, hi, my name's Sean, and my friend Jeff and I started this thing called Think International. You can check it out, thinkintl.tv. Anyways, gave him my email address. Thanks so much. Love what you're doing. Love your book. 4 hours later, I was on vacation reading this book. He emails me back and goes, love what you guys are doing. Was there a specific question you had or anything, or were you just kind of saying hi? And I was like, get out. And this is really what's changing.
Was that on the reply?
What?
Was that on the reply? No, but
he actually emailed me because I called him and left a voicemail on this line, and it was again very specific. Now here's the deal: the thing that's changing is the superstar thing is going away, and it should anyways. The celebrity culture in the church and different things. There's nothing, of course, honor and all that stuff, but that's going away. But that people are really looking for connection, and so while there can still be that place or whatever, we want to be real. And imagine if someone in your church, if they tweet, famous pastor so-and-so, and he's like, yeah, man, what's up? And he talks back. But I'll tell you this, from being in ministry, you've probably experienced this same thing. Churches are the worst. I'm going to get on my soapbox right now. Of returning phone calls, emails, of hearing from them. I mean, if you tweet a church, they should be like, yeah, what's up? Like we should be, because we're caring for people, or ministering for people that are being there. You know what it's like when you're trying to when you're not cared for in a restaurant or somewhere, anywhere. How much more of the church should we just be on top of people, replying and so on and so forth, just hearing from us, just to show we care. Effort is underrated. That's another thing Gary Vaynerchuk said. He said, effort is underrated. Like, you go, well, what if I can't reply to everybody's tweet? That's fine. Reply to 90% of them. Like, try to do them all. Just try, make effort to reach out to people and to do it. Answer your question, yeah, have a Twitter and a Facebook. Those are good reasons to. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, right.
All right, thanks, guys.